I just met with these guys who want to do a documentary on my son Covey. That's why I'm a little late. I thought I would just do a quick little meet and greet with them, but somehow or other I got roped into a conversation. I'm usually pretty, laconic, man, a few words. Somehow we had a big conversation. So the documentary is about mixed martial arts and children. And so my son Covey, as you might know, is undefeated in mixed martial arts. He's the national champion. He was the #1 ranked wrestler in the state of California. And so they want him to be a part of the documentary. I think just simply his record by itself is impressive enough for him to warrant being put into a documentary. He's incredibly skilled. But then the fact that he's a Hare Krishna and that his parents are, I have a restaurant called Ahimsa. But at the same time, he's, of an athlete in combat sports. They thought that contrapositioning would be really interesting. It would make for good TV. Then they got me in the mix, which made it even more intriguing for them. The filmmaker actually got kind of giddy while we were talking. And somehow it came up in the conversation, I've been shot. And he just was like, oh my God, can I put that in the movie? And he was just even more intrigued, me being shot on one hand and the Ahimsa restaurant on the other hand, and then Covey, fighting on the other hand. It was just like this. He actually slapped his hand on the table. He got so excited at one point. He was like, I can see it. Incredible. And he thought it was interesting that there were he was with this girl who's also somehow involved in the film. And she was like, oh yeah, Covey's got this alter ego, Covey, my son. Because we were talking about, he was in a tournament. And Covey, when he wrestles in local tournaments, he wrestles 20 pounds up. So when he weighed 60 pounds, he would wrestle these guys who weighed 80 pounds. Just to wrap your head around that, imagine wrestling somebody who weighed 1/3 of your body weight more than you. It's no joke. It doesn't happen in combat sports. You can't win. There's too much of a weight difference. So Covey was 60 pounds wrestling with a guy who weighed 80 pounds, but he would win. He would double gold. He'd gold in his weight bracket and the weight bracket above his. And he would, pin everybody and tech people, which means score 15 points on them without having a point scored against him until they just the match is just over because he's dominating so strongly. And so he was wrestling a couple of years ago, and he was defeating this whole team. Everyone on the team he was beating, in all the different weight classes. And they hated Covey because he's just all nice and shakes their hands, all fun, has this devilish little grin on his face, and then the match goes, and he's like this Tasmanian devil, which would be a great, actually, name for a fighter. And my wife's family's from Tasmania. My wife's Aboriginal. Do you guys know that? From Tasmania, Tasmanian Aboriginal. And so he could be the Tasmanian devil. Actually, he could pull that off. He could pull off that. Anyway, so he was wrestling this guy, and the guy was getting beat so badly, he started headbutting my son, which is something that you can do in wrestling. You kind of lock up, you clinch up, you collar tie, and you kind of headbutt a little bit, and it's a cheap shot. You mess with your opponent and you jack with them. There's certain ways you mess with people that are legitimate, and then at a certain point you start to cross the line into illegitimate stuff, and it's illegal, and there are techniques you can be fined for, penalized for. But a lot of it happens in that mix where you can't really see what's going on, and so you get some cheap shots done. And that famous Mike Tyson who bit off Evander Holyfield's ear, that's because Evander Holyfield headbutted Mike Tyson 3 or 4 times in the fight. And so he was doing it purposefully. And Mike Tyson got so fried, because you watch him kind of drop, like his legs go out from under him, because he's getting headbutted again and again. It's really, and it's illegal in boxing, but the refs can't always see it. And that's when he finally took a chunk out of his ear. If you look at Evander Holyfield's ear 20 years later, there was a bite taken out of his ear. Like, he actually bit a piece of his ear off on live TV in a worldwide boxing championship match. It's ridiculous. It's just like, and he somehow got a boxing license after that, which I can't even figure out how you would ever be able to get a boxing license back after doing something like that. It's like egregious assault. But anyway, he was headbutting Covey. And so Covey headbutted him back and knocked his tooth out. And they lost it. The other side freaked out. But they weren't freaking out when Covey was getting headbutted. But when Covey returned the favor, the kid lost his tooth, and they freaked out. And Covey's like, what? Like, what do you want? Anyway, then they got back into it. Covey beat him. And at the end, when Covey beat him, Covey said some choice words to him, which I'm not going to repeat here. And then people really freaked out because Covey made it clear he was like not messing with the guy. And so the girl was trying to say how Covey had an alter ego and like an Incredible Hulk type thing where he would turn. Do you guys follow this? And I made the point to her that no, to be involved in combat sports in any way, shape, or form means you are comfortable with violence in a controlled environment. Like, we got my little buddy over there, my little buddy Ryan over there. Raise your hand, Ryan. Little man Ryan. Ryan's comfortable with violence. How do I know Ryan's comfortable with violence? Because he went and got himself a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. And there's no way you're going to get a purple belt in jiu-jitsu without getting comfortable with violence. Right? Yeah. It's just some people are comfortable with violence. And they can be nice people, but they've made that commitment, usually at a young age. You can also learn it, but they've made that commitment. That violence is an option. It's on the table. We as a society have decided that violence is an option and should be on the table. That's why Pavan, in a certain context, they said press the violence, the volume up. Somebody's writing in, Laura's writing in the volume up. That's why we have laws where people can engage in self-defense. And then Pavan could kill somebody, and provided it was done reactionary, and the other person was the initial aggressor, Pavan could kill somebody and then go home. And never be charged with a crime. Why? Because we, as a society, have decided that there's certain types of violence in certain contexts that, although it's the same act of, say, killing somebody, it's not murder. Do you guys follow this? I'm going somewhere with this. Did you guys follow this? So I told the filmmaker, I said, you think it's this cool contrapositioning of like ahimsa and then we're savage and like we're this and like we're non-violent vegans and at the same time we're savage. And we're doing kirtan and we're punching people. And it's like you see this incredible incongruence, which as a filmmaker is sexy to you. You follow? But that's not actually the case. That's not actually the case. I would never hurt an innocent creature. I don't believe in hurting innocent creatures. At the same time, I'm comfortable with self-defense. Our legal system acknowledges that self-defense is not the same as straight violence. It's not illegal, it's justified. Did you follow that? So I made this point to him, that what he thought was this really cool dichotomy wasn't actually a dichotomy. It was a consistent ethic towards life. Do you follow this? We all need to have some congruence in our lives. We need to take the trouble to work out the kinks and make sense of everything we're doing. And as you grow up and become wise, you ideally create more integration and congruence in your life. Otherwise, you wind up with some variation of the Madonna whore complex. You guys know what that term means? Let me tell you. The Madonna whore complex is a term from Freudian psychoanalytic theory. And it refers to a circumstance where a man, and this obviously could reverse this, but a man marries a woman, and for that man, his wife is the Madonna. You know what the word Madonna means? It means the Virgin Mary. So your wife is this pure, pristine, Madonna type figure. You follow? Now that's a problem if you're married and you view your wife as being a Madonna-like figure. Because then what do you do with all of your lust? You guys following this? So in the Madonna whore complex from psychoanalytic theory, what you end up doing is you end up finding a person who you can then repose all of your carnal desires into. In other words, you have all this pent-up, repressed sexual energy that you can't express towards your lawfully wedded wife because you view her as being pristine, and therefore you end up with a side piece and an affair so you can express your carnal desires with someone who you can see as a quote-unquote whore. Do you guys follow this? That obviously is a very unhealthy way to live your life. There's no integration. There's no possibility of peace or happiness with such a disintegrated life. And so what has to happen is we have to, and this isn't just, I gave the example of the Madonna whore complex because it came to mind, and it's kind of racy and it gets people's attention, but it makes the much more general point I want to make. We don't want a disintegrated life. We want to be ourselves with people. We want to be ourselves with ourselves too. We want to be comfortable with who we are, warts and all. We want people to know us, the real us. We want to know ourselves. We want to have relationships with people where they know the real us. We want to make our way in the world and have relationships and have friendships and meaningful relationships across the board with people that are representative of us in our entirety. The classic example of this is the closeted homosexual who has a basic orientation towards same-sex romance, but just lives a lie in the external world. And then has this terrible, unintegrated piece of themselves that they're ashamed of, that they hide from the world. Oftentimes alcoholics have this, or drug addicts have this, where they hide their addiction from people. And they live two different lives. And it's incredibly lonely. And it makes peace and tranquility and happiness an impossibility, because nobody can really love you, because nobody really knows you, because you've invested most of your life in hiding a huge chunk of stuff that you're struggling with from the people you care about the most. And the reason you do that is because you're afraid that they'll reject you if they know the real you. But the weird thing is, if you're afraid somebody's going to reject you if they know the real you, and then you hide yourself from them, then you already feel rejected, even if you're hanging out with them. And you're in a room full of people who love you and know you, but you feel all alone because you felt like if they knew the real you, they wouldn't love you anymore. So even if you fake it and nobody knows, you do the math and you feel unloved anyway. You following this? We need to take the trouble to understand ourselves and live a congruent life. And look for wholeness and integration and synergy in our lives. The backbone of that is honesty, rigorous honesty, and exposure. We need to expose ourselves to other people, at least to a few close associates. Let them see us for who we are, warts and all. Let people love us even though we're imperfect, even though we're still a work in progress. The amazing thing is when you expose yourself to people and they still love you, you redo the math in your own mind and you realize you're not so unlovable after all. Do you guys follow that? So I would meet with these people to do their DACO, which is what they call, it's Australian slang for documentary. It's like the coolest term ever. I want to use it every day of my life. You know? They're doing their DACO. And so they want us to do the documentary, because my kid's underage, they got to get us to sign off on it. And they have this idea that it's going to make for good filmmaking, this radical dichotomy that they want to set up. And I see it. I can see where that would make for good TV. But for me, there's no dichotomy. I would never eat an innocent animal. I would never hurt an innocent animal. I would never hurt an innocent person. At the same time, violence is part of life. The capacity for violence is inbuilt into us. And every legal system in the world recognizes that in certain circumstances, violence is justified. He tried to say that, it's necessary versus unnecessary violence. And I said, no. You could theoretically choose to let somebody rape you, choose to let somebody abuse you, because you just decided that you didn't have to react and you decided to tolerate it. It's not really necessary versus unnecessary. It's justified versus unjustified violence. Warranted versus unwarranted violence. You follow? That's the distinction which is made legally. And so somebody could choose to, not explore that capacity for violence, to not learn how to use skilled violence, to not revel in that or rejoice in that or cultivate that. I don't think that's wrong. I don't think it's necessary that everybody prepares for war. Some people have to. And so if you get into the ring with another human being and you compete, you're comfortable with aggression. And then when that person starts to break the rules, they change the landscape of the fight and headbutts start to become acceptable. Or biting starts to become acceptable and dirty tricks start to become part of the game. And so that's the game they want to play. That's the game that gets played. Now you see those soccer players, they get like, I love those clips on Instagram. It's like female rugby players, and they're like getting their nose blasted, like bust open, and it's just still on the field playing. And then they show like world-class soccer players, and somebody touches their shoulder and they fall on the ground writhing. That's just exploiting the rule set, because they think they can gain an advantage. If there was no advantage, they would just play through it. It's all about playing within the rule set. And figuring out, anytime you give people a rule set, they're going to immediately try to figure out how to win within that rule set and use every element of that rule set to their advantage. And then people start to break that rule set, well then the gloves come on, and now that becomes kind of a new realm. And so for my son Cubby, standing up to that bully on the mat, I was cool with it. The parents were freaking out. I was like, go team, no problem. And no problem whatsoever. If you guys tooth knocked out, tough luck, buddy. You shouldn't have headbutted my son. You got punked and humiliated in public, and tough luck, man. You should have taken your licks, lost like a man or a boy, whatever you were, and not resulted in the book of dirty tricks. You got what was coming to him. No problem at all. I'm that parent, you know? My kid gets suspended for fighting, and I'm like, good job, son. Unless it was towards somebody innocent and he was the bully, then I'm not cool with it. Then I'm not okay with it. There's a difference. One of them is justified, the other one isn't. So, I think that all of us need to search for congruence in our life. We need to all get comfortable with who we are eventually, so that we can reveal ourselves even to an enemy and not be ashamed of any aspect of ourselves. I think that's really important. If you want to be happy, if you want to help other people, if you want to be able to experience love, you have to be vulnerable and let people in. It takes courage. Virtue takes courage. To do the right thing, even when it's not the easy thing. Arte, virtue, courage, critical for virtue. Because you have to be willing to do the right thing even when it's not easy. You got to be willing to close that gap between who you would be if you were your best self and the way you're acting on a daily basis. You need to bring some congruence between your ideals and your lifestyle. And the only way to do that is to admit where your lifestyle is not congruent with your ideals. And then expose that to light and sunlight and let the world see it. And shrink that distance between who you are today and where you actually want to be. And the great thing about integrity and virtue is none of it's related to anything beyond your control. It's not based on your balance or your success or the way you play the stock market or who goes out with you or anything like that. It's all just the sunshine you carry in your pocket. Every day is a sunny day if you choose to live with virtue. You take the trouble to think through your value system, who you are, what you stand for, the way you're going to live your life. You think it through. You're honest about it. You know where your shortcomings are. You wear them on your sleeve. You're vulnerable. You let people in. And then you start to bring your lifestyle into congruence with your ethic. One step at a time, one day at a time. The fringe benefit of that is when some joker making a documentary goes, oh, there's like this incredible dichotomy. You can go, no, you're an idiot. There's no dichotomy. It makes perfect sense. And he goes, oh, wow, that makes sense. Yeah, I didn't think of that. The fringe benefit of that is you can explain to the rest of the world how what you're doing makes sense. I'm drinking. I shouldn't be drinking. I'm smoking. I shouldn't be smoking. I'm womanizing or manizing. I shouldn't be doing that. I got abused. I hide that from everybody. I'm treating people poorly. I shouldn't do that. I got a bunch of trauma that I haven't dealt with or processed. I got a bunch of urges I haven't dealt with or processed. I value chastity, but I'm not living with chastity. Whatever it is, we got to own it, be open about it, at least with a few people. At least with a few people. And once we own our shortcomings and highlight our value system and admit our shortcomings to a few people, we're now on the road to recovery. The Hare Krishna movement is magic for helping people live incredible lives. I mean, we're like the best. Like, we get people to be celibate. It's like, who does that? Who even who even opens that Pandora's box? Like, we hang out with teenage and 20-year-old men and get them to stop masturbating and be fully celibate. Stop looking at pornography and be fully celibate. Stop taking drugs. Stop exploiting other people. Stop taking advantage of the opposite sex, the same sex. Stop the hookup culture. Stop chasing clout like their life depended on it. Stop compromising their morals. Stop doing whatever to get ahead and with money. Stop lying. Stop being deceitful. Stop compromising their values. We take people in 2021 and make them into saints in a few months. Stuff people never do. Their whole life they can't do. You hang with us for a few months and you're doing all of it. You're like, I never thought I'd be able to do this. Right? That's not the tough part. The tough part is getting people to be honest with what they struggle with. Get honest about where they're not, where they need work. To get people to be honest about all the hidden stuff that they don't want the world to see. That's what no tradition in the world can fix. That has to come from you. Once you bring that sincerity to the table and you get hooked up with a pious tradition where they've earned their stripes and they know how to walk that path, the magic happens. A lot of times people jump in with us and they had a bad past. Maybe they were super promiscuous. Usually meant they were abused when they were a kid, unfortunately, and promiscuity was a way to deal with it. Hypersexualizing is a way to drown out the trauma they suffered when they were a kid. Whatever the case may be, people fall in with us because they have some bad experience and they want to just turn off that part of themselves. And we just have the promise of a asexual, sexless, transcendent life. You follow this? So we end up with a bunch of people who are molested, or a bunch of people who are hoeing it up, or man-hoeing it up, and then our promise is that we'll sanctify you and make you pure, and you'll be able to ice that stuff all over and throw it into a cave and never look at it again, and become a lifelong monk. That never works. The icing things over process is helpful. Cool people down, stop them from addictive behavior patterns. But there's a healing process that has to go on, where people admit what they struggle with and become vulnerable. Then when you heal, then you're good. Then you can go back into a romantic relationship on the back end and have it be healthy and good. Otherwise, you ice things over, and then they get reconstituted, and you bring them back to life, and you're just where you were. You guys feeling me here? You understand what I'm saying? That honesty is critical. Even if you skip the honesty step and just fall in with us because we're cool, and keep your mouth shut about all the bad stuff you got going on in your past or in your head, and we don't squeeze you about it, don't make a big deal about it, and just let you fall in with us, and we help you to follow strictly, it won't last. The way it lasts is you got to become vulnerable. You got to open up. Then you got to process it all, think it through, and on the back end, you can talk to anybody in the world about it and make sense out of it. So to just reiterate my point one more time, I had this conversation with this filmmaker. He thought it was a great story because we could highlight the contrasts. I don't see any contrasts. I see the same ethic manifesting in different circumstances. I see it makes perfect sense. Non-violence in one set of circumstances with diet, violence being cultivated in another circumstance for sport, to express that capacity that you have, to explore your athleticism, your innate potential. I see there's perfect congruence between those 2 points. The warrior sage, the Rajarshi in Sanskrit, the philosopher king in Plato's Republic. I see there's perfect congruence there. That, then as I was driving over here, because I had a whopping 3 minutes to drive over here, became, this is a much larger point, that we've all got our Madonna whore complex, however it manifests. There's parts of our history that we're not comfortable with, and we hide them from people. It might be your orientation, it might be what you've been through as a kid, it might be vices and appetites and addictions that you're currently struggling with. It is what it is, whatever you got going on. We can help with all of it. What do we need? We need a little honesty. Give us a little honesty, we'll love you through it. Help you out. Helping you be sanely, that's the easy stuff. We have a beautiful lifestyle. That's the easy stuff. What can't we compensate for? Duplicity, deceit, hiding. Do I understand where that comes from? Sure, it comes from fear of being judged. But that's also then creates a situation where you can't be loved because nobody really knows you. And by the fear of being rejected, you guarantee you're rejected because you feel like if they knew the real you, they would like you, and so you reject yourself. So it's like, unfortunately, you don't even have a shot anymore. You've already been defeated because you think if they knew, therefore I'll hide, and that means if you think if they knew they would reject you, and that means you've rejected yourself, and the worst outcome has already been guaranteed. At least you got a fighting chance. If you open up to people, some people may love you through it. And you get high-class people who always love you through it. And then you can work on whatever your struggles are. And we're expert. We're really good at helping people with what they struggle with. Because we've been through it all. Come out the back end, and we can help anybody with anything. This whole thing of like you have to have been an alcoholic to understand alcohol, it's all bullshit. You have to have struggled through difficulty and problems. Then you can recognize the problems other people have and see how sincere people can still get stuck in a bad way and empathize with them. It's enough. You don't have to have the exact experience. having gone through the exact same thing. There's a value in that. There's some camaraderie that comes in it, but it's not an absolute necessity. You have to have been rigorously honest and been through it yourself. Almost like you have to go through psychoanalysis to become, as your final thing, to graduate. And the one thing we can't compensate for is honesty. And so all of us need to make a list and check it twice. And we need to figure out who we need to talk to about what, and go through a process of gradually exposing ourselves to the light of the sun. And once that happens, what you need to work on becomes immediately manifest. People know how to help you. You're held accountable. Everything's on the table. And you get with the right group of people, they love you through the whole thing, and you realize, I'm not so bad after all. I'm actually still lovable. One thing we can't do, we try, but we can't 100% make you non-duplicit. We can try. We can listen carefully and expose different things and challenge you in various ways. And it's like I have a black belt in this, which most of you know. Like nobody wants to open their mouth around me. So they got my scalpel out, and I'm like, every single thing you say can and will be used against you for your benefit. But I can't get in if you don't let me. You can shake me off. You can repel me. You gotta let me in. You gotta let somebody in. We can't compensate for that. And even if you're following strictly, even if you did that and you're following strictly, because you just jumped into the ice chest with us, you're like, wow, this is amazing. You feel some freedom. You don't have freedom. You have a reprieve. You have a reprieve, and now you got to take advantage of that, and you got to open up about all your shit, and we'll help you process it before things thaw out. All right, give me some feedback. Yeah. By the way, that was an hour-long class crunched down into 38 minutes because I showed up late. So I'm trying to respect your time, but what I did was I just crunched it. Spoke a little faster and a little more intensely and got rid of a few of the bells and whistles so that we could get somewhere together. What do you got for me?
Thank you for this class. It really struck a chord with me, especially when you were talking about what separates you between what you're currently doing and your best self. I know I've really let myself and those around me down recently because I've fallen into this kind of pit of self-pity. I'm not really reaching out in the way I should. So,
yeah, right? So you just do the right thing. It's actually that simple. Figure out what the right thing is and then do it. Oh, you want to feel good? Hey, why don't you be good? Now I want to be bad and feel good. Yeah, that's kind of cheesy. I should reach out to people. Okay, I don't want to. Well, okay, but I should, so I'm going to do it anyway. Hey, I don't want to reach out to you, but I know I should, so I am. I kind of want to hang up the phone. Don't want to be on the phone with you, but I'm forcing myself to be. What do you got for me? Don't want to show up, don't want to do the right thing, but I know I should, so I'm reaching out. We can work with that. We can work with that. If you're duplicit and you wallow in your duplicity, we can't work with that. I'm repulsed by duplicity. Not in the sense I find it disgusting and repulsive, but I find myself repelled by duplicity. because it means I can't help you. You just got to cook in your own duplicity for a while. You cook in that. You follow? Like when I hang with people, it's like I poke a little bit, I prod, I pry. I do a reversal. I get super honest about myself with people and do that whole thing, that risk reversal, and get like naked with myself in front of somebody so they can see what it looks like and model proper behavior for them. Share my own struggles with people. I got a whole bunch of tricks up my sleeve. But what I'm looking for, make sure I'm good.
Yeah.
What I'm looking for is I'm looking for some kind of charlatan. Charlata e Vaishnavata. Simplicity is Vaishnavism. Some simplicity, some straightforwardness, some honesty, some guilelessness. Without that, you're dealing with a crooked person. Nothing you put in has any value. It's like with a schizophrenic. If they're going through a schizoaffective phase and they're in that just schizoid phase, whatever you say, they don't actually hear it. It's almost like a mental dyslexia, where you say, "How are you?" and they hear like, "What color is the sky?" Like nothing actually goes in as it is. And so anything you put in is just a crapshoot. There's no value in it. You follow? With those people, regrettably, all you can do is let them go. We need sincerity. We need simplicity. We need straightforwardness. We need honesty. Without that, we're hamstrung. We can't do anything. We can't be helped if we don't bring that to the equation. And if you're helping somebody, if they don't bring that to the equation, you can't help them. And anything you invest is just a waste of time. And ultimately, you just got to let the people go. You walk into an AA meeting, like, "Yeah, I don't have a problem drinking." They're like, "All right, we'll see you when you do. There's the door, buddy." This is a place for people who are at least at a level where they can say, "I got a problem drinking." At least that level of honesty is required to set foot in these hallowed halls. Without that, there's nothing we can do. Do you follow that? More. Yes.
Really appreciate what you were saying about integration versus disintegration, and how there's often so many times.
Prabhupada used the word disintegrate. Like when I think disintegrate, I think like a ray gun in Star Trek, because that's how I learned the word English language. Prabhupada, where English was not his first language, English was his second language, he actually oftentimes understood the etymology of words that I use better than I understood them because he had to learn them. And so Prabhupada used to talk about disintegration, meaning a lack of integration in your life. And I read that and I was like, wow, that's really cool. That's actually what the word means. Integer. Integration is from integer. Integer means a whole number. Instead of a fraction. Instead of a fraction self, you have an integrated self. If you're disintegrated, you're fractionated. Integrity comes from the same word. You have integrity. You live according to your value system. Integrity is a very, very broad term. You can have integrity and believe in jihad and then live a life of integrity and commit jihad. It doesn't necessarily say that your belief system is good, but it says that you live in accord with your belief system. Therefore, there's wholeness in your life because you live with integrity. That's a little something on disintegration. Cool, right?
Yeah, very cool.
Okay. I can go deep on all this stuff. I got layers to this. What else you got? More? Yes.
Thank you for this class first. I think building on what Nick said, it's like recognizing who you want to be and where you're at, and that level of honesty. It makes me realize personally, how far I have to go, and I'm great.
I'm always on your case about being duplicit, right? Isn't it?
Yes.
So, in some ways, you don't have to figure out how far you have to go. You just have to be honest with yourself. If you're honest with yourself, you will see the incongruence between your lifestyle and your value system. If you're honest with yourself, other people will see it too, if you open up to them. If you're honest with yourself, you'll see how far you have to go. If you're honest with yourself, you'll know what your struggles are. Honesty is everything. Honesty and openness are everything. Simplicity and guilelessness is everything. It opens the door to liberation. It fixes everything. There's nothing further that's required. It's actually simpler than, hey, it's really cool. I got to figure out this is where I am now, where I want to be. It's actually not that complicated. You just have to be honest. And if you're honest, then that secondary result of understanding where you are and where you have to be will automatically become illuminated. It'll become obvious. Did you follow that? It's actually as simple as opening your mouth and talking and opening up about all the stuff that you spend a bunch of time not wanting to talk about. Like what you're talking about? The stuff you think you definitely don't want to talk to me about. Well, where do I begin? How about the one thing you don't want to tell me? You follow? Well, I don't know if you did know what it was, what would it be? What came into your mind when you thought you don't know? What was the one thing you don't want to talk about? Find somebody you can talk to that about. Maybe it's not me. Maybe I'm not qualified. But once you know what that one thing you don't want to talk about is, now your next job is to find somebody you can talk to that about. Can't do that? Write it down, then give it to us. Write it down, then read it to us. We got to open up. Once we open up, the healing can come in. Mace just had his shoulder, where are you? His shoulder's got to open up again. Made a damn surgery to fix your shoulder because you're an idiot, don't know how to lift weights. And then finally healed, and then they had to open his shoulder up and they have to pull out a ton of infected tissue, right? Suture, right? Nasty, right? And so they had to open you up again because the infection was inside you. And it was never going to heal. It was going to make you septicemic, and you were going to suffer. You got to open it up and irrigate it, and then everything heals. That's life. You open up, and it heals. You can heal. You need expert surgeons around you. You need good people around you. It's not like you just open up on the street, like you'll find a homeless guy or homeless girl. I don't want to be sexist. Go find a homeless girl on the street and open up to her about all your problems and it's all solved. It's not like that. But we are a tribe of good people. We're such a group. If you don't, well, where's that group I can open up to and good things will happen? We are such a group. There might be other groups. Scots Church's College down the street. Maybe they got something going on. And then there's the Quakers down the street this way. Maybe they got it going on. I don't know. There's a bunch of groups doing a bunch of things. I'm not saying we're the only game in town. But for sure, we are of this ilk. One more. Yes.
I just want to say thank you for this class tonight. I really feel like it kind of boosted a little bit of courage inside me to start working on things that I've been putting off for years now, and it's actually been hindering my spiritual growth. And I almost didn't come out tonight, and I just kind of, walked in, trudged in here, and I'm really thankful that I came in here because.
Thank you, Tony.
Yeah.
Thank you, man. You call me anytime. I'm always there to take your calls. We can rap about whatever you want to rap about. I'm glad you came tonight, and thank you very much for sharing that with me. I feel real encouraged that it touched you. Thank you. Matt, what do you got?
From my personal experience, one of the best things I ever did was going to the back and talking to you about my parental situation. I used to get intoxicated until I blacked out all week long, and after I talked to you, I was able to get through it and accept everything that happened to me.
Nobody's actually addicted to drugs and alcohol. I'm going to get radical now. I'm getting loose. Nobody's actually addicted to drugs and alcohol. We are addicted to running away from our pain. You talk about your pain, you got nothing to run away from anymore. Now you don't need to use drugs and alcohol. There's some little bit of physical addiction. That's easy to deal with. The problem is we want to run away from our pain. And the drugs and alcohol is a vehicle to run away from our pain. Skip worrying about drugs and alcohol. Focus on dealing with your pain. Deal with your pain, the need for drugs and alcohol goes away, and then it's just a question of just like dealing with that little bit of physical addiction and weaning you off. It's magic, right?
Yeah. Yes.
It's crazy, right? Like who would have thunk it, right?
Yeah.
You gotta be kidding me. I talk about my painful childhood and what I went through in my childhood, and all of a sudden I stopped having to use drugs and alcohol all the time. Somebody else raised their hand. Who was it? I see you. Second time somebody else. Yeah, Ella, what do you got?
First of all, thank you for this great class. I actually felt like you were mentioning how like just cooling it down was an initial tactic, but it all falls away, and I feel like that has happened to me numerous times, and I'm now just comfortable getting myself exposed.
Short term is not bad. You come in, we get you all intrigued with our transcendent talk. You think you'll be able to like leave all your problems on the wayside, just become perfect in 5 minutes. And then we get you all iced down so you don't die of a heat stroke. And you're not like suffering intensely from the problems which were plaguing you when you met us. And then we got to dig in and fix everything. And if we don't, in due course of time, things will thaw out and you'll be right back where you started. That little moment where you kind of join up and it's all rainbows and unicorns and it's like everything's easy, it's okay. That's a sweet spot there. Get you in the door, we get you signed up, and then we get you on the master's course. It's not even a bad thing. That little fanatical moment where you're like, I'm all about this. I got no problem. You're the problem. It's not even bad. It's just immature. It doesn't last. And then we got to turn that. Just switch that train. Take that momentum. Just move it in the right direction. You follow? All right, so this was lovely. Thank you very much for coming. We'll do a little kirtan, have some dinner, and